The workhorse of the Gaza bombing campaign is the F-16, an old and proven aeroplane.
Israel built a modified version of the fighter jet to suit its tactics with a second crew member whose main task is to control precision weapons.
About 100 are in service.
Although each can carry 7 tons, for practical purposes, it can be assumed that every F-16 takes off with 4 bombs. If all of the 4 bombs were 1,000 kilograms versions, 4,500 flights would be required to deliver 18,000 tons of bombs. But not all bombs used are of the heaviest type, so the number of bombing flights over Gaza might be closer to 6,000. The Air Force has about 170 F-16s of all versions. In any Air Force, about 20% of aircraft are at any time out of service for regular maintenance, upgrades or repairs. Israel is known for professional and speedy support, so about 150 F-16s probably are usable at any time. As the campaign continues, this number will start to decrease as continuous use will require additional maintenance and replacement of parts that get worn out. But that will happen gradually, and Israel will be able to keep more than 100 F-16s in flying condition at any time. Thus F-16s apparently fly an average of 1.5 combat missions per day. Given the specifics of the battlefield with no fewer than 7 Israeli airbases within a 50 km to 100 km, 31 to 62 mile range from Gaza, flight times are short, so pilots can sustain flying at the current rate without worrying about long-term fatigue setting in. All air forces try to have at least 2, preferably 3, crews per aircraft. Although exact numbers are always one of the most guarded secrets, the Israeli Air Force has enough active pilots and reservists with updated training to keep regular rotations. While Israel does not need to worry about a possible shortage of soldiers for the aerial battles, it might have to consider the logistics and finances of the bombing campaign. 600 tons of bombs per day is a considerable amount. About 30 articulated lorries are needed just to transport them. Costs are also mounting. A 1,000 kilograms bomb costs the U.S. Air Force a reported $16,000. A much smaller foreign customer like Israel would probably have to pay a higher price of $25,000 per ton just for the dumb version without the cost of adding the sophisticated and often much more expensive targeting electronics and hardware. That makes for a daily price tag of well over $15 million just for the basic bomb. With the add-ons, it's fair to assume that the figure rises to at least $25 million per day. At that rate, the bombing campaign has so far cost Israel a minimum of $750 million just in bombs. What about additional costs? The F-16 is claimed to have a very low cost in flight, only $8,000 per hour. Assuming a minimum of 300 flight hours per day gives a figure of $2.5 million per day, or $75 million so far. Adding to the calculation all additional aerial assets needed to sustain the bombing like surveillance, reconnaissance, electronic warfare, airborne early warning, command and control, and the like, the cost of the entire aerial campaign skyrockets. Israel has probably spent at least $2 billion so far to bomb Gaza, and the figure could be even higher. This is without the cost of mobilizing and keeping under arms 360,000 reservists and waging the ground war that Israel began last week. All that for very dubious military value. It is obvious that at the receiving ends of Israeli bombs are predominantly civilians and civilian infrastructure. There is little reason to believe that the figure of more than 9,000 people killed in Gaza, among which nearly 4,000 are children, includes more than a few hundred Hamas fighters.